Contained in a small engine house on the edge of the cliffs is the world's only working engine powered by steam on its original site. The winding engine, known as a Whim engine, was designed by Francis Mitchell and made by Harveys of Hale. The purpose of the engine was to carry ore from the deep workings beneath the sea. The engine was restored by a group of volunteers known as the Greasy Gang after a fundraising appeal was launched in 1990 to generate the money needed to carry out the work. Known as the Mine Under the Sea, Levant Mine Company was formed in 1820. By 1836, 320 men, 44 women and 186 children were employed at Levant. The women and children would work on the surface, preparing the ore for sale, while the men worked in the mine. Miners at Levant would go on to work at depths of up to 350 fathoms and 1 mile out under the Atlantic Ocean. They would mainly produce copper, tin and arsenic. In 1919, the mine suffered a terrible disaster when a link between a rod and the man engine snapped, sending the engine down the shaft. 31 miners were killed and many more were injured. The engine was not repaired, and the deep levels were never worked again. The mine closed in 1930 after losing large amounts of money when the price of tin dropped dramatically. Today, Levant Mine is a very popular visitor attraction and is in the care of the National Trust. The iconic engine houses at Botallack are probably the most photographed in Cornwall. The Crown's engine houses pumped water from the undersea levels and hauled minerals and men up the shaft. The slopes above were filled with men, women and children working on the dressing floors. Botallack is often referred to as the submarine mine. The tunnels which run underneath the old engine houses travel out under the Atlantic for more than a mile, forming a vast industrial complex under the waves. For this reason, Botallack was well known and became almost a tourist attraction for royalty and adventurers. Among the famous visitors to go down the mine at Botallack were Queen Victoria and the Prince Consort in 1846, and the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall in 1863. Wilkie Collins, the novelist, wrote a terrifying account of his descent down into the mine in 1850, when he reported that he could hear the roar of the surf above his head. Above the cliffs, there was a widespread mine layout with 11 steam engines. Between 1907 and 1914, Botallack was reworked. Arsenic flues and a stack were built on the cliff top. There was also a count house where mine workers would come on a monthly basis to be paid. In 1865, Botallack employed 500 people. Despite sporadic reopenings, Botallack finally closed in February 1914, and despite efforts to investigate new workings, it never reopened. Geevor Tin Mine is situated on the west coast of Cornwall, perched on the rugged cliffs high above the Atlantic waves near the village of Pendeen, where mining has taken place for over 300 years. In 1905, the site was acquired by West Australian Goldfield Limited, who brought together the various mines under the name of Geevor Tin Mines Limited. For the next 80 years, and especially after the closure of Levant in 1930, Geevor was the lifeblood of the local community. In 1918, the mine employed 205 miners underground and 98 workers on the surface. The next year, a new shaft was sunk called Victory Shaft, named to celebrate the end of the First World War. The 1960s saw much underground exploration. This included extending into the undersea workings of the Levant mine that had closed in 1930. During this period, Geevor was beginning to struggle due to the falling price of tin, but the mine carried on until its pumps were finally switched off in May 1991. The story of Geevor could have ended there, with the mine flooding, the plant broken up for scrap, and the machinery left to rust, but it didn't. Cornwall County Council purchased the mine, and a dedicated group of ex-Geevor employees worked tirelessly throughout long hours to prepare Geevor for the next phase of its long life. Geevor Tin Mine is now a museum and heritage centre, the largest preserved tin mining site in Great Britain.